it's why with high achievers too, I will always challenge them to say, this is great. Absolutely celebrate your successes, which usually are the things that they've done or the things that they have. And then it was ask that question, who were you that allowed that to happen? How did you show up? Because when we slow down to recognize who we were as individuals and how we showed up and actually have gratitude for that portion of ourselves, that's how we actually are moving past just the doing and we're getting into that experience and that feeling.
Yep. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to your favorite podcast, High Vibin' It. It's your homegirl and co-host, Kelsey Aida Raldi's inspirational author and self-love advocate and manifestation queen. And I am here with my bestie, Lindsay Robinson. She is a hypnotherapist extraordinaire who helps people to really just align their mind with their highest goals, highest potential. And our guest today also has a very similar mission in life. She is a coach, she's a speaker, she's an author, and she helps high achievers to heal their relationship with themselves. She helps people take courageous steps in identifying limiting beliefs and all that good stuff. There's so much more that she does, but we'll let her dive into that and explain to you all about her beautiful work that she's doing in the world. And we really wanted to have her on to talk about becoming a high achiever, being a high achiever, dreaming big, giving yourself permission to go for it, and anything that falls kind of under that umbrella. So if you identify as a high achiever or you want to become a high achiever, this is the High Vibin' It episode for you. Welcome,
I'd say,
Kamini Wood.
or if you've heard really bad things about high achievers, because I've heard like the bad side of being a high achiever.
Or if you judge yourself for being a high achiever.
Exactly. Let's go.
So yes, welcome, Kamini. Thank you for being here. We are very excited to chat with you because we are both high achievers, recovering perfectionists, and type A big goal individuals.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here because that's who I am, recovering people-pleasing perfectionist. So
there's a lot
I feel at home.
Yes, perfect.
I love how all of our guests are just so perfect for us. So listen, I always want to ask people how they got to where they are. We talked a little bit. You shocked us a little bit before we hit record. So let's go into that. What's your story? Where did you come from, and what brought you to this work?
Sure. If I go too long, you just cut me off because I tend to tell this story.
And
Lindsay won't, but I will.
Feel free to swear, because a lot of people ask if they can swear. Yes, we have clicked all the buttons to be allowed to swear, so go for it.
All right. Good to know. I actually grew up in Connecticut. So let's go all the way back. Little Indian girl with a strange name, Kamini, growing up in a very predominantly white town. My parents were immigrants themselves. Mom and dad came. My mom came to the States when she was in her teens. My dad came to the States in his early 20s. So it was just my sister and I. And so there was a big part of me at that stage in life that just really wanted to fit in, right? Because how do you fit in when you look different and your name is different? So as I was 5, 6, 7 in the elementary school age, there was a huge part of me that was trying so hard to figure out how to fit in with the other kids and make sure that they would accept me. And that's where a lot of the people pleasing came from, if I'm going to be honest. Of course, at the time, I didn't know it. And then, of course, I also was trying really hard not to be a burden to my parents because they were working so hard. So very early on, the people pleasing, the perfectionist, meaning I did not want to be a burden. So as long as I didn't fail and I did all the right things, my parents didn't have to worry about me. This wasn't a message that was given to me by my parents. Right. It was just how I assimilated information and experiences. So you take that into adulthood. I ended up in the .com industry. I was a project manager working with individuals as my resources. So I was managing time and people, and then ended up running my husband's law practice for about 15 years. And so in that vein, I was really helping the employees that came through figure out who they were, what they wanted to do. And I really found that I was enjoying that. Now, at the same time, I was the mom of 5. My oldest is 21 and my youngest is 9. But at that time, my middle child was actually showing signs of people pleasing and perfectionism and overgiving and overfunctioning. And as I was watching her, I realized she was just mirroring back me. And so I will absolutely tell anybody who asks me, first of all, that my children are my best teachers that I've ever had. And also they were my catalyst to change.
Can
Once
I
I was,
interject real quick?
yeah,
So for all the parents out there, what did you observe in your wonderful child that showed you, oh, this might be something that we have to look at? What kinds of what was she exhibiting, you know?
exhibiting. Yes. So there's a lot of anxiety around school and making sure that everything was done perfectly and, correctly, and a lot of fear around making mistakes. And then in terms of social interactions, anxiety around ensuring that she was pleasing not just her friends, but also how was she portrayed and received by parents, right? Wanting to make sure that everybody was okay with her. And so for me personally, I saw that that was a reflection of me. Because I was still showing up in that vein, even just running my husband's practice, that really was me leaning into making sure that he was happy. That it was because his dream was to run a law practice. It wasn't necessarily mine, but I wanted to make sure that I was doing all the things to ensure that he had exactly what he needed. He was happy. He was living his dream. And so it was through that process that I realized I've got to do some self-reflection here. I've got to do that inner work. Through that, I was able to recognize where my story came from. So as I mentioned, that started 5, 6, 7, when I was 5, 6, or 7. I didn't know that at the time. I realized it during this process. Anyway, so as I went through this self-transformation, and also I really did enjoy that part of my professional world where I was working with individuals and helping them figure out what they wanted to do professionally and personally. I was very close with most of the people that I worked with. I realized that that was my calling, was to actually work with individuals on helping them move themselves forward, figuring out where they were holding themselves back. Because I not only could offer people that from my own personal experience, but then also from the professional side. And of course, went and got training and specialty training in different modalities in order to do that. And then, of course, we fast forward even further, and I now have my oldest is a professional ballerina, and my second is a Division I athlete, and it has come in handy. I cannot even explain. Just the amount of self-doubt that creeps in, the questioning of, is it okay to have these, people, everybody would tell my daughter, what do you mean you want to be a professional ballerina? Well, I mean, nobody makes it. Like 2% of the people make it. And
Yeah.
she absolutely was like, no, I'm going to do this. And so there was a lot of emotional and mental work that went into that. And even my son, told time and time again, 1% of athletes get to go to, because he plays lacrosse, 1% of athletes get to go Division I lacrosse. And again, it was, well, I can set these goals for myself. It's actually okay, as long as I also don't burn out in the process.
Yeah. And that is a really big piece that I know we're going to talk about, and I can't wait. Real quick, I always take the perspective of like the 1%. And I'm feeling that there's 1% of people listening to this that maybe don't identify as a high achiever, but they know someone who is. When that person comes up to them and tells them about this big goal, maybe we could talk about how they should receive that, even though they know they're not that type of person. How should they respond to somebody's goals instead of pooing all over them? In terms of like, what do you mean that's what you want to do? Because every single one of us on this call today, I guarantee you, has heard somebody say that to us at some point, as people who don't necessarily limit ourselves in terms of like what is possible. What should they say from the expert?
It's thanks for that.
No pressure.
No pressure.
Honestly, it's a great question, because I do think that a lot of us have heard that. And I do think that we've been on the receiving end, high achiever or not, of maybe putting something out there that was a goal for us personally, and then somebody having a really negative response to it.
Or you do it to yourself, like, oh, there's no chance that I can do that because these are the statistics, or, whatever.
And the truth is, statistics do exist. They absolutely do exist. And instead of looking at just the statistics, it's asking the question of, if I really want this, who do I need to be in order to make it happen?
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. Who do I choose to be in order to maybe live into that? And so if we're on the receiving end of somebody's really big goal, instead of saying, oh my gosh, it's not possible, it's like, wow. And, who or how do you anticipate being in order to live into that? What are the
Oh,
steps you're going to take?
the expansion, you
What you gonna
guys.
do about it?
Look at this expansion. Because what an expansive question. Instead of that immediate, like, put a lid on it, guys. That's impossible. What do you mean? Which, of course, we've talked about this before on the show. If someone you care about poos on your dream, what they're really doing is telling you that they can't. They have no desire. They're going to limit themselves in that way. It really has nothing to do with you per se. So if you can, as somebody who maybe wouldn't want that goal or thinks that it might be far-fetched or maybe a little bit hard to do, okay, what would you need to do? Who would you need to be in order to achieve that? Oh, so good. So good. I love
And
that question.
I want to add to what you said, Lindsay, about why people do it, because I also think the people that love us sometimes poop on our dreams because, well, yes, like you said, they don't believe it's possible for them or they don't think it's possible or whatever. But usually it comes from a loving place of like, they don't want to see you disappointed and they feel like you might
Also,
get
yeah,
disappointed, right? So they're
totally.
coming from this space of like, well, in order to protect her or him from becoming disappointed, let me just discourage them from the start so they don't have to go down that path and become
But here's the
disappointed.
thing.
And I think that happens too with ourselves, right? Like we talk ourselves out of our desires and out of our dreams and out of our big goals because we're scared of what we potentially might feel if it doesn't happen or it doesn't work out. And we're scared of what we're going to make it mean about ourselves, right? Because it's one thing to fail. That's whatever, no big deal. It's a natural part of life. But if you make that mean that you're a failure and then you never try anything again, that's going to be really detrimental.
But here's the thing too. If somebody you love tells you, or maybe says that out of the fear of you being disappointed, why would they be afraid of you being disappointed if they thought it was possible? So for me, it kind of goes back to, well, they just don't think it's possible for them. And so they're translating that into whatever motivation causes them to say, nah, you can't do that, or you shouldn't, or you might as well
I will
just
say on this topic, I will say that because I work with teens and young adults as well, a lot of times parents will step in and shoot down. This happens right now. I'm hearing all about it with colleges. It's, well, no, maybe you shouldn't apply to that college because I'm not really sure that's going to work out for you. And I do think that it's a parent's projection of
yeah,
their own fears, right? That can happen. Absolutely. I agree with you, Lindsay. And also in terms of what Kelsey was saying, it's the fear that their child's going to get hurt and wanting to protect them. So it's with this idea that they're protecting them, but what they're actually doing is keeping them from getting to experience whatever it is that they need to experience.
exactly.
So that they can actually grasp onto their own autonomy.
Who was it that just said this to me? And I've never looked at it this way, but I never will look at it any other way, which is, if you're trying to protect, I'm going to use my kids if I'm trying to protect my child from a hard experience or from getting hurt or from whatever, I do to some extent. I think it's just natural for parents to do. And somebody so beautifully said to me, I would never deprive anyone of their journey.
Mm-hmm.
You guys, when she said that to me, I was like, oh my God. It's just so beautiful. Like, of course, you would never deprive anybody of their journey. And if that's part of their journey, it's almost like your responsibility as a parent to make sure they do get to experience everything they want to experience and all of the ups and downs, and as Kelsey loves to say, contrast that comes with it, because that's why any of us are here. Yeah, it was just it was beautiful.
I love that. I love that.
Great.
Yeah.
This is so good. So for people who are listening and they're like, yep, I'm a high achiever, me totally resonating. Or if you're a high achiever if you're a big dreamer and you're working on becoming, a high achieving individual, what are some of the core like thought patterns that you feel are the most helpful? Because I know that as a high achiever, as a type A perfectionist type person, I can be super hard on myself and I can sometimes judge myself and feel like I don't fit in because I'm like, oh, everyone else is just wanting to do like this basic life stuff. And like, why can't that be enough for me? Like, why do my dreams have to be so big and so hard and so impossible? Like, I'm never going to be happy unless I do those things. Like, why?
I never think that. I'm just like,
I
okay, I'm doing
that.
this. And it is hard. And I have my days where I'm like, yeah, this is never going to happen for me. But I'm never like, why can't I be satisfied with less? Because here's the thing. I mean, everybody's different. But for me, I grew up with, I know what that is. And I'm like, let's run as far as we can in the opposite direction. I will be over there. You guys have fun. No hate, wonderful for you. Not for me. I'm good. But like, it's funny because I know Kelsey and I have had this conversation many times where she's like, why can't I just like be in so many words, be like normal or be not normal, but like I'm trying to find the word that she uses. But yeah, like
less ambitious. I
dream
don't know.
normal dreams and have like normal stuff and be satisfied with that. But you're too big, girl. You're too big.
Yeah. Help me and everyone else listening.
Yeah, it is a good topic though. I love it.
It's a great topic. I will be totally transparent. There have been moments where I'm just the type of person that says, gosh, why can't I not worry about so many things? Like, why can't I be the person who doesn't care?
Girl.
Who doesn't care? Like, I was just on a call the other day and somebody told me that she went on a trip and she just showed up and had no hotels booked or anything. And I think my jaw dropped because I'm like, I don't know what that would be like not to have every single piece of my trip figured out so that I knew exactly where I needed to be. And I thought,
that's funny.
Wouldn't that be interesting and lovely?
I really did. I
Right?
did that at 20. I did that at 21. It was fine. I went to another country and I was like, I booked the hotel on the train to the place and I was like, totally fine. Looking back, like on the last trip I went out of the country, I had a binder with increments of 15 minutes of everything we were going to be doing on that trip. I want to show it to the Patreon people because it is. I'm like, yeah, this is exactly what I need now in my 30s. This is what I need to be doing. And my husband was like, can't we just like show up at a pub and have a drink? And I'm like, no, it's not on the schedule.
It's not on the schedule.
Like, you definitely can go overboard with it. I know that for sure. But I think some of that just comes with like, I don't know for you. For me, I got so much more anxious when I had kids. Like everything had to be planned out. But before, what was I stressed about? Like seriously, what did I pass off as stressful and worrying? Because I would just like book a hotel on the train. Like,
it's interesting that you say that because I think I probably did. I probably did do it more before I had kids.
Yeah.
And then as I shifted into motherhood, that probably did shift a bit.
Kids
for me.
mess you up.
in the best way.
In beautiful ways, but also ways where you're just like, I really did that. I really was walking home at midnight in Los Angeles once.
Right.
Like I did that.
And I didn't think twice about it. Yeah,
I didn't think twice
moments.
about it.
And I've had those moments, especially when I hear my kids telling me those stories, and I'm like, what are you doing? What is that? Why are you doing such things? And yet I know I did them too.
Yeah, exactly. Oof. I forget the question. Kelsey had a good question.
Yeah, I was going to say about the high achieving question. I do think that high achievers will beat themselves up for being so high achieving at times, right? It's almost, we do have that internal dialogue that says, why can't I just be okay with not mediocrity, but why do I have to continue to push myself? And my take on it is, and why not, right? As long as you can do it with self-compassion and you can do it with the ability to give yourself grace when something doesn't work out the way that you expected it to work out, and you continue to allow yourself to learn through the process, and also not necessarily be so outcome driven. Like have your goal, absolutely, but give yourself the ability to be present for the process so that if the goal looks slightly different, you don't deem it as a miss or you miss the success in what you did create. And that's my take on just how we can actually embrace high achieving rather than running from it as though it's a bad thing.
Yes.
I love that.
That would be helpful for me, considering you can't outrun your nature and you can't like just change who you are. Like I resonated really a lot with your story about your daughter like feeling pressure in school from such a young age. Like nobody pressured me. I pressured myself. Like my teachers weren't putting pressure. My parents weren't putting pressure. Nobody was putting pressure on me to do perfect. I would literally have mental breakdowns every year during STAR testing, which doesn't even count for anything. It's literally so the school can look good. And I would have mental breakdowns. I would get physically sick every single year around testing because in my mind, I had to get it perfect, or it was like I would just self-combust. Like if I don't get it perfect, I'm dead.
Kelsey,
like it escalated quickly.
You know what I'm thinking now?
Kelsey.
What I'm thinking is, which one of your parents is like that?
I mean, maybe my dad can be like that a little bit, but they're really not.
But you like took it to the next level.
If they were a little, I took it to the next level. I think it's just like how I was born. I think I was just born this way. But yeah, I'm sure people listening can resonate with just beating themselves up, putting so much pressure, always being so attached to the outcome.
The outcome attachment is big for me. And Kelsey, I know that maybe you don't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that you are one of the people that maybe when something doesn't go the way that you expect, you wonder what you could have done better or differently, or maybe, yeah.
Like
For me,
sometimes you
I'm
can
like,
take
this
so
was
much
perfect.
ownership.
Why did the universe just like throw this universe? This was perfect. What are you talking about? Like, I go real weird with it, and I'm just like, I could not have done anything better. With some things, I really do. Like, if I could not figure out like what I could have done, I'm just like, no, that was good. Universe, come on now. But at the same time, I think it really helps to know that failure, or whatever that means, is a very important part of success. Like, there's not one person that's successful that hasn't failed multiple times. And the only difference is, this is the cliche, is they don't quit. They keep going. But yeah, I think that's one of the other ways that me and Kelsey are very lovely and different, is that she's like, what could I have done? And I'm like, I couldn't have done anything better.
It was perfect.
It's so funny because
good.
I vacillate between the two of those because of the work that I've done. I will start off with the inner critic being like, oh my gosh, I totally dropped the ball. What did I miss? I should have done something different. And then like, I stop and I'll notice I'm having those thoughts because I'm catching them. And then it's, oh, all right, universe, how did this happen for me? Let's get curious here. And then I'm able to see, like for instance, somebody falls off my calendar and I'll immediately be like, what happened? What did I do? And then I immediately will shift into, oh, well, maybe this is an opportunity. And without a doubt, I will absolutely find something else to either work on or that maybe I had forgotten about. And I'm like, oh, this was perfect. This was perfect. It was meant to be.
And the days where you wake up and you're just
how high achievers deal with it, right?
Yeah. Well, like on the days when you're just so done and you just don't feel like doing anything, but you have like 4 calls and then like 3 of them cancel, and you're like, I want to be mad, but at the same time, I'm really okay. I needed this, needed this.
Apparently, the universe knew I needed a little bit of time.
Yeah.
So for the
yeah,
people
no, it's yeah. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say, for the people who aren't naturally born obsessive high achievers, such as myself, what can they do if they want to adopt more of the positive aspects of a high achieving person, so that they can dream big and really let themselves go for it and do the things that they want to do? Maybe they don't feel like they're already high achieving in life, but they want to be. What are some I don't know, perspectives or practices or ways that they can start to be in order to embody that more?
It's interesting that I think a lot of people who are not high achievers actually put themselves in a box with that label of saying, well, I'm not a high achiever, so therefore I don't have these big goals. And so instead it's what would happen if we took off that mask? It's a mask in and of itself, and simply say, if I had the ability to do whatever I wanted, what would I want to experience? Or what would I want to contribute to this world? What would I want to learn? And asking those 3 questions allows room to start that creative process of what are some of those big goals that I may not have even thought of because I had been wearing a mask of, well, I'm not a high achiever, so therefore I can't even think about those things beyond the very surface level.
And then they get the tingles and they get the excitement and like, oh, can I really want that? Oh my gosh, that's the best.
I like that. So I heard, get rid of the labels that you're placing on yourself, and then get in touch with your genuine, truest heart's desires that maybe you've never even expressed to yourself. Maybe you've never even given yourself permission to contemplate or think about what that could be. So you can know your desire. And the only way you can know your desire and then go for it is you also in the process have to claim it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And I like that you said experience instead of have. Like, what do I want to experience? Ooh, that's kind of a game changer, because we always talk on the show about you're just chasing a feeling. It's not a thing. It's not a car. It's the feeling you get from the car. Okay. So what do I want to experience? I don't know why I said car, but what do I want to experience? What do I want to enrich my existence on this planet and make positive ripples in the pond or whatever? Oh, that's so good. And it's a very big perspective shift. Yeah.
And if we think about goals, a lot of times it is, I want to either achieve this or have this. And if you ask that question, why, why do I want that? And then ask it again and ask it again and ask it again. Eventually you get down to the feeling and the experience that we actually want to have. And at the end of the day, that's the thing that we're trying to achieve. It's not getting to have something or getting to do something. It's why with high achievers too, I will always challenge them to say, this is great. Absolutely celebrate your successes, which usually are the things that they've done or the things that they have. And then it was ask that question, who were you that allowed that to happen? How did you show up? Because when we slow down to recognize who we were as individuals and how we showed up and actually have gratitude for that portion of ourselves, that's how we actually are moving past just the doing and we're getting into that experience and that feeling.
Yep. Yeah. And I think we all have experiences in our past where we can remember when something worked out really well. You were probably just happy. You were probably just your most natural way of being when those things happen. It's very nice.
And I like the idea of shifting the focus from what you've done, what you've created, what you've accomplished to who you have
Yep.
been in the process and being proud of that and tying your value more to who you are as opposed to what you do. Because I know, like,
Yeah.
just as someone who can be on the high achieving, intense spectrum, like you can really start to subconsciously attach your worth to what you create, how many books you write, how fast you can do it, how many you sell, you know, all the things. And so I think that is a nice practice that I'm going to take with me and be
Yeah.
like, okay, when I wrote that book, who was I being? You know, over the years of creating this thing, like what was I exhibiting in life to make that happen? And maybe I can look back and be like, well, I was actually being really consistent. Awesome. Look at me. I'm so consistent. Or I was being really dedicated, or I was being really true to what I desire, or I was being really authentic in what I wanted, or whatever it is. And those are all really beautiful things that I think can and should be celebrated. But of course, we're not going to celebrate them if we don't think to do it. So thank you for bringing that up.
Absolutely. It's something I had to train myself to do. It was, I actually came up with it when somebody was talking to me about a gratitude practice. And a lot of times we talk about, well, what are you grateful for in your personal world? And what are you grateful for in your professional world, which I think are amazing. I always challenge people to ask the question, what am I grateful for about myself?
Yes.
Because that's that question. How am I showing up? You know, even
Yeah.
in the biggest challenging moments that we face in life, it's what am I grateful for about myself? And sometimes it's just, I'm grateful that I'm showing patience or I'm showing just kindness to self or something, right? Because when we can actually recognize, that's what I'm talking about with self-compassion and grace with
Everyone who
self.
just shuddered at that question, we are talking directly to you. Everyone who just flinched
You know
when
who
we
you
said
are.
talk about and show gratitude. What do you value about yourself? Yeah, we're talking to you. This is your sign. Play around with it. You might be surprised at how easy it is, or that it
And
gets,
if you
because everything is a
and
practice.
if you really want to challenge yourself, ask yourself that question for the last 24 hours.
What does that mean? Say it again.
Just,
Oh,
you know,
like what am I grateful for in the last 24
in the
hours?
last 24 hours? Because it's so easy to be like, well, I'm a very patient person. Awesome, great. But how were you and who were you? What are you grateful for in the last 24 hours?
I like it. We
Who are
should do
you
that over on the
today?
Patreon. We should do a round table over on the Patreon and ask each other that.
Okay,
'cause
yes,
I think that's
I
cute.
like that. Put it in the queue for the Patreon. Yeah, this is so awesome. I'm just feeling really happy that I'm not the only one, you know?
Me
Yeah.
too.
Hopefully people listening are like, okay, great. I'm not the only crazy
Yeah.
person who's like trying to do all these big amazing things in the world and like sometimes getting a little too attached to the vision.
Yeah.
Well, I think, Kelsey, honestly, I think that's where imposter syndrome comes from, right? Because what happens is we think we are the only one. And so then we keep it to ourselves. And then when we keep these things to ourselves and we don't talk about it or recognize that other people are having a similar experience, what we end up doing is the inner critic takes over and we start to then self-doubt or wonder if it's even possible to do the big things that we want to do. I work with professionals and executives who you wouldn't think that they would have any of these issues, but absolutely 100% of the time they are dealing with imposter syndrome and self-doubt because they themselves are wondering, is it even possible to have the next level dream? You know, I've made the directorship. Can I really get to VP? Is that possible? And am I asking too much of myself? Is that too big? Is that too big?
Yeah. Yeah. And especially for the spiritual people, that who am I to have all this? I'm supposed to serve. I know it's an old, it's an old trope, I guess, that spiritual people feel bad for getting paid for their work or for having these big goals, especially when those goals are attached to abundance or money, because you feel Like, am I being a hypocrite as a spiritual person to want the big things? Yeah. So I think no matter who you are, no matter what your goal is, you could come up against our own little glass ceiling where you have to figure out, can I get through this? And the answer is always yes, but how long am I going to let myself stay where I am before I can see that that's possible? And you can have whatever you want. I don't care who you are or what your spiritual affiliation is. You get to experience the life you want to experience. Like, you just get to, period. Amen.
Period. Amen.
Amen.
Mic drop. Period. Amen. Mic drop. All of the things, because I just think it's so, I don't know. It makes me sad when people are like, but maybe I can't. Yeah, maybe you can't. But if you can't, it's because you don't let yourself. That's it.
Maybe you can't, but like, don't you want to find out?
Don't you want to find out?
Don't you want to
Maybe you
actually
can't,
find out?
Right. Maybe you can't. And what if maybe you can?
Right.
And what if you can't do that thing, but the universe has something so much better that you didn't even think of, because you just have a human brain and you can only think so much, but it comes out so much better. That's usually how it works out for me. It's like so much better than I ever thought it would be. Because, we are just humans.
Mm-hmm.
We can't leave space for all the possibilities, but you don't have to. Just know how you want to feel, what you want to experience, and yay. Celebrate.
Go do
it.
Yeah, and go do it.
So if you're waiting for a sign, as if all the other episodes haven't been a sign to like go for it and do the thing and dream big and allow yourself to go there in your mind and in your heart and in your life, like, let this one be the one that really hits it home for you.
Yeah. That thing that you really feel like gives you butterflies and it makes you feel all giddy. That's the thing we're talking about. That's it.
Following your highest excitement is fun and scary.
Yes.
And fun and scary some more.
And fun and scary. And the scary is the indication that you are actually engaged, right?
Yeah.
So instead of scary being, I have to run away, scary can be, oh, this is calling me to go do it.
Yeah.
I'm alive. Doesn't it feel good to feel alive?
We've talked about expansive fear before and contracting fear. Contracting fear is like, I'm in danger, I need to get out. And expansive fear is like, I know this is going to be hard and it's a little bit scary, but I know that it's something that I should do and I really want to do it. And yes, it's going to be scary, but that's more of, it's a different feeling. It's like when you became a mom, or when I moved to California by myself. That was freaking scary, but I knew that it was something that I needed and wanted to do, because it would have helped me enrich my and Kelsey became a ballerina. Come on. Expansive.
Expansive. We've been doing things. We've been doing things in the world, and it's good. It's going.
Yep, we've been doing things.
We're still
things
doing
are
more
happening.
Things, being more things.
Well, this is so funny.
Oh man, you guys, it's like getting towards my nap time. I think I'm getting
I can
delusional.
Tell. You're so
really
like
hyped
hungry.
up on this topic of conversation, but I'm like so excited about it. I feel like my thoughts are like really jumbled. So excuse me if I'm like not making
I think
any
you're
sense,
just feeling the spirit. I think you're feeling the spirit.
I'm just trying to say, like, live your best life, basically. Hey there, we hope you're enjoying this episode so far, but if you want to listen to the whole thing, we're going to invite you over to our podcast. Either search for High Vibing It on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you guys listen to podcasts, or even better, if you want to watch the extended video version of this episode that's even longer than the actual podcast itself, head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/highvibe. Lindsay, tell them what's awesome about the Patreon.
Patreon is where we have all of our extended episodes. As Kelsey said, we have it on video, so you can actually see the things that we're talking about. Sometimes we have visual aids, and it's nice to know what we're talking about. We also have hangouts that we do sometimes that are exclusive to Patreon people. And you can get started with all of this and bonus content and everything that we have only for the Patreon people for as little as $3. I think it's $3.33 a month. And that's it. And you guys can get all the benefits and all access to everything that we put in there. Really cool.
It's really cool, really fun, super easy to join. And you guys don't even have to do that to finish this episode. If you're like, screw it, I don't want to pay any money, I just want to hear the rest of this episode, go to our podcast, High Vibing It, search for it wherever you listen. It's totally free. Either way, enjoy the rest of the show wherever you choose to enjoy it. And we will see you guys next week because we do a new one every week. Adios.
Bye.